Hi there. Welcome to Venture Deep Dives, where our investing professionals highlight fascinating sectors and startups in venture capital. In each episode, we choose a single topic to explore with a member of our investment team. I'm your host, Peter McEwen, EVP of Community at Alumni Ventures. I'm here to celebrate the entrepreneurs finding new ways to solve big problems and shine a light on the building, disruption, and innovation out there. Today, I want to introduce our take on Prescription Digital Therapeutics, presented by Green D Ventures managing partner Laura Rippy, a veteran venture capitalist and experienced executive in the cloud, SaaS, and mobile space. Laura's deep dive explores prescription digital therapeutics, also known as PDTs, a novel biotechnology that doctors can prescribe to patients leveraging the power of software to help treat a remarkable range of medical conditions, from diabetes and obesity to schizophrenia and multiple sclerosis. This new category is aimed at reimagining the way we think about treating disease and costs a fraction of traditional pharmaceuticals to research and develop, offering doctors and patients cost-effective, high-tech care. The prescription digital therapeutics industry is projected to reach just under $7 billion by 2023, making this pharmaceutical industry disruptor a compelling investment opportunity. Remember, you don't have to be a venture capitalist to have venture capital in your portfolio. If you want to learn more about investing in exciting venture opportunities through our firm, please visit av.vc. Thanks for listening, and please enjoy Laura's deep dive into PDTs.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Bordewieck Rippy. I'm a managing partner here at Alumni Ventures Group running the Dartmouth fund, Green D Ventures. So I'm so glad you're joining us today to do a deep dive and learn more about prescription digital therapeutics. So first, I want to just kind of frame what are these and why do we do these dives? So prescription digital therapeutics is a new category. So think of going to a doctor for a fairly serious disease, and in addition to the tools in the doctor's toolbox that might be radiation or might be traditional pharmaceuticals, the doctor prescribes something for your phone, an app, a tool that helps you address this disease. That's what we're talking about, a digital therapeutic. It could, I suppose, be on your iPad, it could be on your home computer, but most often it's on a phone, and it's prescribed by the doctor, reimbursed by insurance, and creates an entirely new category of care, of therapeutics. So that's what we're going to talk about today, what the business is around that, some new companies that are emerging, why it's kind of a change, and just hopefully to pique your interest. We're going to make sure that we also hit some of the numbers as well, but we're going to drive through the opportunity. So let's do some definitions. So prescription digital therapeutics are targeted at serious diseases, and they're an alternative in most cases to pharmaceuticals. It's a whole new class, as I said, of therapeutics, and some key things to remember: they are used with a physician prescription, which means they've gone through clinical trials for efficacy. They have gone through FDA approval. They are typically reimbursed by insurance, and they also have some traits as with intellectual property barriers, some moats because of that work that's been done up front. So to give you kind of a taste of what it means, an example is a company called Wobot, which is an Alumni Ventures company. This is in the behavioral health space. It uses natural language processing to create a dialogue between the patients and the Wobot that is part of their offering. So they just raised a $100 million Series B. They are early in their journey, but certainly off to some really great traction, and a way to kind of help you visualize what these products are all about. So why do we care? What's sort of the investment thesis around this? So it's potentially disruptive to pharma, for sure. Oftentimes there is, it's a cheaper alternative to pharma. If you think about drugs that are on patent versus a digital product, there's typically sort of a cost differential that's advantageous to the payers and eventually advantageous to the patients. It also is enabled by some incredible artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, sometimes augmented reality. Some of the latest technologies are applied to our health in this way, in our digital health. I find it interesting because there are some adjacencies that sort of accelerate the trends around prescription digital therapeutics. So one is the consumer health apps. To give you an example, if you've ever used Calm or Headspace, these are digital therapeutics, not prescription, but they're ones that are out there in the market, in this case, to help you relax, to help with some behavioral issues. Some other ones that I've used personally, Noom, Future, these are apps that in the consumer space are very readily available and help patients and help end users be more healthy and really kind of crack open the code of people interacting with their phones, interacting with technology toward better health. Another driver here is the collection of real-time data. So if you can think of a researcher who wants to understand a disease like maybe fibromyalgia and how patients feel over the course of the day, this is a great way to collect even more data with obviously the patient's permission to improve treatments and improve our understanding of some key diseases out there. From a comfort perspective, more people after COVID feel comfortable with digital products. Many of us have used telemedicine now due to COVID, and the idea of interacting with your phone around your health is something that patients, I think, have gotten more comfortable with over time. And lastly, there is an imperative to cut healthcare costs. This is a way where developing software enables the patient to feel better and to get better with a lower cost overall to the healthcare system. When we look at companies in this space, there's a few things that really kind of pique our interest, in particular gaps where patients are being poorly served by the existing alternatives. We're going to walk through a company called Swing Therapeutics in the fibromyalgia space, where this is a pretty dramatic difference, and in part why we think the thesis around the digital therapeutic is strong. Obviously, great tech has to have an excellent user interface for the consumer and for the clinician, typically cheaper and better than what's out there right now, and really to see that adoption is likely, that the kinds of doctors that might prescribe this would be open to a new approach, that the kind of patients that might be using these are open to a new approach for treatments. We look at the reimbursement paths, we look at privacy concerns. So you'll notice, most of the companies we'll talk about today are not directed at kids because there's privacy issues. There's one in particular that's a pretty cool one, but generally speaking, this is a category where we want to make sure that security issues are covered for the patient and the clinician. We avoid, super crowded categories. I don't see us investing in a Calm or a Headspace competitor. That's already pretty hot and busy. We like to engage at the point where some efficacy has been proven and there's a real value proposition to the customer and to the clinician that really, kind of bodes well for our investment. Some numbers to get you intrigued. So obviously the pharma industry, it's well established, creates, new drugs at the cost of $1 billion or $2 billion. The development cost for technology in the app space is much less, and so you start off with an advantage on that front. And particularly as pharma R&D costs have risen over the years, this is another reason why it's a super interesting category. In terms of sizing it, so the projections right now from folks like PitchBook put it at like a $50-60 billion opportunity by 2025. But the prescription digital therapeutics piece of that is hard to project right now. It's about $6-7 billion. But interestingly, it's kind of a greenfield, right? So we're working into this new category of opportunity, and really how big will it be is partially gated on the quality of the products and the adoption rate by the clinicians and the adoption rate by consumers, and some of that is gated on FDA approval and reimbursement from doctors, all of which are moving in sync with these companies, but it's difficult from that sense to fully project the timing of the opportunity if one piece of the puzzle is ahead of the others. But as you look forward, 2024, 2025, I think a lot of those things are going to be in place, and we'll see greater usage and adoption of these types of products. So let's dig into my favorite part, which is the actual companies. So first, to start off, is Pear. So Pear is really, call it the granddaddy of the prescription digital therapeutics market. They were the first to market. They were the first to prove efficacy in clinical trials. They were the first to get reimbursement, FDA approval, and the first to go public. So Pear Therapeutics is an innovator in the category, and their category they tackled first was opioid addiction through a phone app, so interacting with the patient through a phone. One that was really the first exposure for me in the category was Blue Note. So this addresses cancer-related stress. So think, a situation where a cancer patient wakes up at 2 a.m, can't sleep, right? What are their options? Certainly pick up the phone, it's right there, instead of waking up their spouse or significant other, and they start to doom scroll, right? So Blue Note is an alternative to that. Blue Note is certainly on your phone, but instead you're connecting with content and counsel and knowledge about your particular cancer situation, connecting to other people who are in that same mode, and really giving clinical-based counsel and advice and tools to help that patient deal with the stress that might lead to insomnia. Maybe it's fear of recurrence that is surfacing. So in Blue Note's case, they have had FDA breakthrough designation, which is a big deal, shown the economic benefit. They have a team of folks who are very well versed in the reimbursement path. They're working hard at that, and they raised a $30 million Series A. Another example is Wobot. We touched on this one before. They raised a $100 million Series B. The core of the Wobot technology is natural language processing. So again, applying technology to customers' pain and suffering issues, and really trying to address that through technology tools that help them feel better. So Wobot's also early in their process, but making great traction. One note I wanted to bring up here is the common thread across 3 of these, and one on the next page, is the common lead investor. So there's a specialty VC in Seattle called Jazz Ventures, and they have carved out this category. All the early companies that have passed through FDA approval have been in their portfolio, virtually all of them, and they have this real specialty expertise to how to understand what's going on in DC and how to kind of get the right clinical trial information to pass a breakthrough and brand new type of treatment for patients. A few more to kind of pique your interest. Swing Therapeutics, I mentioned before. So this treats fibromyalgia, which is a tough disease because it's difficult to diagnose. Patients are typically kind of middle-aged women, and the symptoms overlap with some other diseases, so it's difficult to kind of pin it down as fibromyalgia. The reason why, in this case, Swing has an interesting opportunity is the existing drug therapy doesn't seem to work all that well. So when in a sort of head-to-head comparison, Swing Therapeutics had 72% of patients reporting improvement versus only 7% from the drug that's most commonly prescribed for the category. So we joined their $12 million Series A, and they're going through more clinical trials, but they are off to the races here. Mahana was FDA cleared for irritable bowel syndrome. Like fibromyalgia, difficult to diagnose, lots of discomfort, ways that through an app you can control diet and exercise and some of the sort of behavioral health issues that make life better for a patient. So the clinical trials have shown that there's a 60% improvement in symptoms of patients of patients with IBS that have used Mahana. And I think the interesting nuance here is no side effects because, of course, it's an app on your phone. You're not really taking any drugs. There aren't side effects to be shown. So, that's a whole piece of the approval process that's typically a lot easier for the Prescription Digital Therapeutics. There's a $61 million Series B recently. And the last one is Akili. So this is the one for kids, specifically kids with ADHD. FDA cleared Akili for that patient population. It's the first and only prescription treatment for ADHD using video games. So really meets the patient where they are. It's a way to kind of use video games to train kids' brains to handle some of the ADHD symptoms and help them get better. So they filed for a $1 billion SPAC. So in retrospect, when we look at these companies and we want to kind of do the postmortem and look, what do we think we're probably going to notice about those where it's a hit versus a miss? Certainly there will be, efficacy evidence, some regulatory success. We'll see adoption by payers, physicians, and consumers so that, we see that it's been embraced. Technology advances that make the products even better as they go through the development cycle, and potentially some big learnings from the data that is collected. So, what are the ones that probably won't work out? If the economics don't work, always. If there's a security issue, right, that's always a risk. If for some reason regulatory environment is not welcoming, that's going to be a challenge. Another one is if the technology needs of the product are too expensive for the patient population. So say, for instance, in some of the ones that require, there's one that does a headset, right? And that sort of hardware that's expensive sometimes will be a blocker. But the software ones probably will surf that issue smoothly, but that is relevant for those that have a hardware requirement in terms of the treatment. And other issues, if there are many players that are trying to compete for the same target, we may see that some don't have enough of a competitive moat. But overall, I think there's a lot of promise here in terms of the kinds of companies that are likely to succeed. So if you're curious about this category, please dig in. We're going to send around links. There's a white paper from Tuck, which is the Dartmouth Business School, with kind of up-to-date numbers and some of the market information. And you'll see a few other links here in the follow-up and enable you to kind of dig in and understand more about the category. So anyway, in summary, it's a disruptive approach in the market. It really leverages the digital tools that we've been working, whether it's natural language processing or artificial intelligence, machine learning, using AR and VR to cope with diseases and pain in a way that is different than pharmaceuticals, no side effects, and oftentimes can really have an improvement seen in random clinical trials. It's early days for the sector. We recognize that they need to go through FDA approval, these companies and products. Certainly there needs to be greater awareness, although I will say, interestingly, on that, talking about drivers, as doctors use products like Calm and Headspace, understanding how that can help them might mean they are more likely to prescribe these approaches. Obviously, insurance reimbursement, critical. Helps that economic interests align. And we're already sort of early days in this, but seeing some market adoption, and seeing some positive regulatory signals. So I hope you stay in touch in this category and watch as it unfolds. And I really appreciate you digging in and joining us for this deep dive. Thanks so much.